Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another episode of CAOverwatch. As always, I am one of the hosts, Spencer Chason, and with me, as always, is
Christopher Calls, the boring one.
The boring one, exactly. So this is another episode. Obviously, last week we had we had the Toronto Defiant have their final game of the season versus the Florida Mayhem. So we're going to get into that in just a bit. But first, I actually did a little post on the Reddit forum, the Toronto Defiant Reddit forum. So if you guys don't follow that, you should. Obviously, there's a lot of cool things in there. But two, basically what had happened was Zoe. So from the casting team, or Chris Puckett actually, I think, tweeted this out, sort of this template. There's sort of this like wacky Wednesday thing at the competitive Overwatch thread. So I thought it'd be fun if we could give our best Toronto Defiant memes and we'd highlight it on the show. We got a couple actually. I was surprised. I was a little worried we wouldn't get any. So I thought I'd just go through them right now. So to start things off, Grump Trump 45 hit us with the sadly true stage 4 Toronto Defiant fans and stage 1. With that, Tion just will always have stage 1, boys. Just sums it up pretty perfectly in terms of, I think, how the season went. I thought I'd throw my own on there just to get things started. So, I mean, that is me. The Overwatch League season 2019, Toronto Defiant fans, and the 2019 Overwatch World Cup. Because personally, I'm super, super excited to see how Canada performs. Hopefully, they have a better World Cup showing than Toronto Defiant had a better Overwatch League 2019 showing.
Let's just take 1 second to observe your username. Is that XXX_SWC14?
Bro, it's not my fault. First of all, SWC14 was already taken. SWC14 has been my username since RuneScape in like 2002. Like I literally had SWC14 as my RuneScape name in 2002, and someone on Reddit already took it. So I had to do the basic XXX. I apologize. But that was mine, so we got that done. Which is pretty funny. And then the original post, which I feel a little bad about. So this is the one that I posted on trying to get people to send the submissions. And we actually got one from the comments. And I think because the person... Where'd the comment go? I lost the comment. Oh my goodness gracious, Chris. We're actually throwing.
Oh no, classic.
There it is. Okay, so... So because Tion24, I think, commented it as like a comment as opposed to a separate post, it didn't get the amount of love that I think it deserved because he put a full Korean roster, Toronto Defiant, and going 3-6 or 3-18, which personally I thought was pretty funny. So that's my favorite one out of the bunch. Good job, Tion24. So it works so well with Sideshow, just sitting there and going 3-18. Okay, so now that we got that out of the way, we can get into some more Overwatch related things. So I'll just put the highlight video on in the background. Hold up, I want theater mode. Yeah, there we go. Okay, so let's get started. So obviously we got to go to the CNE Gaming Garage. So for those of you who don't know, the exhibition had this this massive gaming sort of spot at the exhibition this year in Toronto, and that's actually where the final game for the Toronto Defiant versus the Florida Mayhem was being played. So it was actually hosted by CarQ, who's like the official streamer for Toronto Defiant. He's also the community lead for the Team Canada World Cup roster. So it was really cool to be with everyone. A lot of people were there too. We had like Richard and the Alpha Flight team were there, as well as Mamachu and like Mangachu's parents were really there. So that was really cool. So we got to sit there. The beer league team was there, and they actually had a couple people in the tournament. So there's this like $5,000 Overwatch League tournament. Sorry, not Overwatch League, but $5,000 Overwatch tournament that was going on. So we get to see some like really like I think the two teams in the finals were like legitimate top tier Overwatch teams.
They're at least like GM. I think they're GM teams.
No, yeah, they're like 4,400 teams. Like there were some really high level Overwatch teams there. The standout to me was, I mean, I doubt he listens, but if he does, there's this guy Dimes who ended up winning the whole thing, and he played Pharah. It was honestly the most impressive Pharah I've ever seen in person. It was insane. The kid was actually insane.
I think the difference between good and great Pharahs, and I noticed this with Dimes, is that like great Pharahs, it looks like nobody's ever shooting at them. But that's not because nobody is ever actually trying to. It's just that they find a way to stay within these sight lines that only they can access.
Yeah, exactly.
No one else can see them, but they can see everybody else, and they can shoot to these areas without being shot at.
Exactly. His positioning was fantastic. Obviously, he was just hitting with the rockets, not like just using the area of effect damage, but hitting them straight onto, and his boops were fantastic. Like, it was like insane how talented he was. So, I mean, congrats to the team that won it. Obviously, I think the winner got like $2,500, which is really cool. And it was also cool to sort of be at an event like that at the exhibition. This is the second year that they've done it, and it's the first year that obviously Toronto Defiant kind of got to have a viewing party there. So it was cool being in a crowd.
Like the most, Spencer?
My favorite part of the entire thing?
Yeah.
I actually really liked the tournament. I wish that it was a little bit of a better setup personally, but it was there was some really high level Overwatch there, as well as getting to try out Gears 5 for the first time. There was a Canada debut to try out Gears of War 5, so that was pretty cool. How about you?
Yeah, no, I agree. I think that the whole thing was a lot of fun, and I really enjoyed playing Overwatch there. Mm-hmm. My favorite part was definitely watching the mini tournament that was going on, seeing some really high class Overwatch from the locals. There's a couple things that could be improved upon. Like, I believe that Richard was specifically complaining, and if I'm wrong, he can correct me on this, but that they were kind of messed up the setup of the
some last minute changes.
Computer tournaments. Like, they didn't provide keyboards or mouses for the tournament area, and the specs for the free to play PCs were better than the tournament PCs.
Yeah.
So I mean, minor stuff. It's only Senior Game Garage has only been there for 2 years.
Yeah.
So
just room for
improvement.
It was. I think part of it was there were so many teams that.
Oh yeah, that too.
Yeah, there were so many teams that signed up that it was initially supposed to be, I think it was a best of 3 double elimination. So you'd play 3 maps and you had to lose twice in order to be knocked out of the tournament. But because so many teams showed up, it ended up being 1 map and single elimination, which obviously I see both sides. Like, I don't want to shut down the tournament just because it's tough to turn people away, right? Like, it's a fun tournament. It's about building the community, the Overwatch community in Toronto. I want as many people to show up as possible. So if you have to sort of change the format to accommodate that, I'm okay with it. Yeah, the biggest thing to me though, the monitors were like 32 inches and only 60 hertz, and then the free to play was 27 and 144. So I would have liked to have seen like a nice 24-inch 144 hertz monitor just to keep it standard across. Because obviously, if you're like a 4500 level hit scan, there's no way in hell you're playing on 60 hertz, 32 inches. There's just no way. So obviously, that's a bit of an adjustment. But like you said, it's the second year. They got room for improvement. I thought it was really cool to see like these teams go at it, and they're up there and they're screaming and they're giving each other high fives, and there's like 10 people surrounding them watching their game. So overall, I thought there was a lot more positives than negatives. But yeah, going into next year, I'd like to see the specs for the tournament be upped a little bit. But like you said, small complaints. Overall, a lot of positives came from it.
Overall, a lot of positives. Now, let's get on to the dreaded part, the final game.
Yeah. So, it was really cool to see some top tier Overwatch from the locals, and then we watched the Toronto Defiant versus the Florida Mayhem, and a little bit less so. Listen,
tell me about it. What was your favorite part? Let's start with that part, Spencer.
My favorite part of when it finished, like I don't know that. I'm kidding.
Rip.
Yeah, I don't even know if I have a favorite part.
Any good things you saw? Were there
any positives to take away from that Toronto Defiant game? Listen, there's always next year. It's I don't want to harp on it too much because I think you need to take a lot of things with context. Was it a great game from the Toronto Defiant? Absolutely not, right? It might have been one of the worst games we've seen them play this year, which is obviously unfortunate. It's not the way you want to end your season. I think the biggest question mark when it first started was why is Yakpung playing main tank and Sherrick's not? We can talk about that in a bit. But we didn't look like the Toronto Defiant that we had looked like for the past couple of games, right? Like, even though we had lost some games 3-1, I think that we looked pretty good. So, but like I said, you got to keep things in context here. We're out of the playoff spot. Yakpung's playing his first game in a while, right? Like, it's not like he plays consistently. We're going up against, yes, Florida Mayhem is also at the bottom, but this stage in particular, they're pretty. I looked at their roster. Man, it's a good roster. Like, you can see it up on screen right now. BQB, Fate, Saya Player, Gargoyle, Chris, and Hagapunk. That's a really good roster, especially for 2-2-2. So it's not like we lost to like another team that's really struggling right now. Like, this is a legitimate This is a legitimate good team, and Saya player is actually insane. Like, my favorite part, the biggest takeaway from that thing is Saya player is incredible. Like, Saya player dunked on us last time and then just one up his. I didn't even know it was possible to one up your performance. He literally just absolutely dunked on the Toronto Defiant, then played the LA Valiant, set a record for most final blows in a single map, and then played us here and just stomped us, man. The kid's incredible. So that was my biggest takeaway.
Absolutely amazing. And I would like to know what it would be like if 222 is here for the whole season. Like,
oh my god, yeah.
It could have been different. Like, if we saw them play the Titans, or they may win. They could be like a top 12, maybe even top 6 team if it was like this for the all 3 stages.
Well, yeah, look at the Washington Justice. They had like 2 wins going into the stage, and they went 6-1. Like, that's insane.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously, now you want to talk about another hits game who's dunked on us in the past. Corey's had a fantastic, but I mean, Saya player has just every time I watch him play, because again, he's doing it against Logix, who is no slouch, right? Logix is a fantastic DPS player, so for Saya player to have a performance like that, I think is really impressive.
And just like I think he made Logix scared. Like, Logix is like, I think one thing I've really liked about his play in the past is that it's like just he has this brute confidence type of play about him.
Yeah.
And you could see, like, just starting to even go up against side player, he knew how hard he got dunked in the past, and just I think it killed his confidence, which hurt his play.
Yeah, I don't know if he was scared, because there's a difference between he's scared and like I'm losing the Widow battle, so I either come back on Widow and lose again, or I try to swap off on something else and hope that it works.
I mean is that
he had his moments where he I think it's actually, you can see it up on screen right now, and the second point of this where he went on the Hanzo and got some picks, which actually led us to winning the map and actually having a time advantage. It just passed, but so I think he had some pretty good moments. I don't know if I would say he was scared, but
I'd say he lacked his confidence compared to other games.
Part of it, yeah, and then part of it's just side play. Just this game he just played better, so there's not much you can really do.
The one part of this game that I really want to comment on is Hanamura.
Mm-hmm.
Hanamura point A, and it seems like we've had a lot more mid fights nowadays because alt charge is slower.
Yeah, for sure.
And it seems like Toronto Defiants specifically did really poorly on mid fight in the first point with Hanamura. Like, we got when we were on defense, they got slayed with a boop and right behind the wall, and then they just did the exact same thing the second time.
But yeah, that's another thing where it's like, let's keep it in context here. Yeah, so Chris had the fantastic boop, which completely threw our positioning off and sort of led to the fall apart of that defense. But also, like, that's not your standard defense, right? Are we running that same position if this is we win, we're in the playoffs, we lose, we go home? Probably not. Like, I think some of the reason why we were trying that strat out in the first place was because of the fact that it's like, it's our last game. We have the opportunity to try some things out and see how it works. So let's give it a shot.
I wasn't saying that the strat they tried in the first place was a bad idea. It was just that, like, they do it a second time and lose because of the same reason.
Yeah, so you're talking about the lack of the ability to adapt.
Yeah. More like that. Mm-hmm. I'm totally fine with that. It's just, the fact that they won the exact same way the second time. That was like, okay, guys, like, maybe you should have seen that coming. Obviously, not trying to dunk on them too much, but it's the last game, so whatever. But I still love the Toronto Defiant. Mm-hmm. But it was just unfortunate, especially considering how big our viewing party was, how enthusiastic everybody was there. We had Karku out there. Overall, it was great. I really enjoyed it.
One of the worst parts is sorry, I don't want to cut you off. You can finish.
No, it's okay. You can go on.
I was gonna say one of the worst parts is obviously because it was a viewing party. I mean, I'm rocking my Toronto Defiant jersey right now just to for respect. Great season overall. I had a ton of blast watching the games and covering them. But most of the people there seemed like they were already fans, right? You kind of assume that.
Yeah.
But if there was anyone in the audience and this was their first sort of taste to the Toronto Defiant and the Overwatch League, it's obviously not the impression you want to leave. Which is unfortunate, even though I do think most of the people there were fans. And
I think
that was one of the things that disappointed me the most. I would have really loved, like, if you're a first person watching the game and you don't even see them win a map, And not even that, but you see them play pretty poorly on most of them.
Yeah, like I think they're also Toronto Defiant was assuming that there'd be some people who were new to Overwatch or new to the Defiant that were watching, because like CarQ literally did like a whole demonstration of what Overwatch was before the game started.
Exactly, and I don't think this game was. I think I'm harping on it a little bit too much because I think the last two, especially the last map, man, the last map was hard to watch. But the first two weren't that bad if you go back and you rewatch it. Like, you know, obviously we are a really good assault team. And we almost won that second point. If Chris didn't get that back cap on Lucio, which frankly, I mean, it's easy to say it shouldn't have happened. Who knows what the comms are like or the situation, what the calls were. But, you know, we had the 99% and we had the ultimate advantage and we had the picks. And then Chris gets a back cap and then it kind of, you know, we kind of panic and try to reposition ourselves and we get picked off in the process. If we win that map, who knows if we're able to take the first game. Even the second one, we had the time advantage going into it. And then, like you said, Chris had some really important boops, and then we couldn't, you know, reposition after that.
My boy, Chris.
So the first two were like actually kind of close, and then obviously this team's designed for a map 5. It's unfortunate that we only got there once because we really are designed to take those assault maps. But yeah, overall, I would say it was a disappointing game. Again, context is important. It wasn't our normal roster. Yakpung was in there instead of Sherik, and we said on the last episode I think the worst Overwatch we've ever played is when you have Yakpung and Gauze together. Obviously the communication issue, you can notice it. Not to say none of them are talented, but Yakpung got picked off first quite a bit. He's an aggressive main tank as it is.
To the point where, you know, the commentators are talking about it too.
Yeah, exactly. And part of that is Florida's a really good team. Part of that is he's an aggressive main tank, and in order to be an aggressive main tank, you really need the support in your team to play around you. And when you have communications issues, things like this sort of happen. So, like I said, I'm not going to dunk on the people too hard. It's the final game of the year. You're already out of the playoffs. You're trying a different roster than you're probably used to. You clearly showed some strats that aren't the norm, so you were still sort of experimenting. So it's important to take this with a grain of salt, but like, man, that final map, when Florida Mayhem subs out 3 of their starting players, and I'd argue like 3 of their top 4, right? They put Swan in instead of Fate. They put, I can't pronounce his name, Brian instead of Hagapung. You can see it on screen right now. And they put DPI instead of Gargoyle. So you're looking at like a B roster. They still had Saya player in there, but a B roster of Florida Mayhem, and we still get dropped 6-4 on Route 66, and we didn't really make out any other subs. Like, that's pretty tough to watch. So it's going to be interesting to see the kind of changes that are made next year. Again, I'm not sure why Yakpung was playing in the first place. I'm not sure if this was a situation where Toronto Defiant was simply trying to raise his stock before they could trade him or sell him off in the offseason, where it was one of those things where it's like, hey, let's just see what happens. If he has a great game, fantastic. And if he doesn't, it's fine. We're out of the playoffs. We gave it a shot. I wasn't sure if this was he's been working on his English and we think his comms have improved and he's shown really well in scrims. So maybe we want to give him one last shot at a competitive game before the offseason to see if him and Gods can kind of figure it out. And we had heard from some people that it was Sherik was supposed to play, that something behind the scenes just sort of happened, and it was it was like one of those you can't see it coming, so he couldn't make it, so they had to put Yakpung in. I'm not really sure what the reason was, but I think that contributed partially to the performance that we saw.
Yeah, I totally agree. So enough of that. What do we move on? What do you want to move on to next here, Spencer?
In terms of for the podcast?
Do you want to talk about what we should be doing now as a team, roster changes?
Yeah, we could talk about sort of the look moving forward. I mean, obviously the homestand weekend just got announced, which is super exciting.
What do you think of the venue?
I love the venue. Roy Thompson Hall is a fantastic venue. I think it seats
it's awesome.
2,600 people, which personally I think is a really good sweet spot for its first ever homestand weekend. Depending on the ticket prices, you want it to be sold out. Right, you obviously want it to be sold out, and I think 2,600 people is a realistic number to expect to show up. So I'm super excited. I can't wait to be in Roy Thompson Hall. And actually, for those of you who don't know, who are listening at home, we got an opportunity to be interviewed by CBC, talking about the
That
homestand.
was awesome.
Yeah, so I mean, I get to toot our horns a little bit here, but Richard let us know that they were doing an interview, and obviously a big shout out to Richard and the Alpha Flight guys. Just do a little plug here for them, but they've supported us quite a bit over the last couple of weeks with this podcast. So if you guys don't already, which I'm sure you do, I doubt there's anyone who listens to this who doesn't follow Alpha Flight, but just in case you don't, you can find them on Twitter. Richard hosts a lot of the viewing parties for Toronto Defiant moving forward. I'm sure he's going to do a lot of other stuff with the new Call of Duty team that's been announced. So they've helped us out quite a bit. So just a big shout out to them. You can find their stuff on Twitter and Instagram and Reddit and all that sort of thing. So that's a little big thank you. But yeah, anyways, back to the interview. So they were doing a CBC interview in front of Roy Thompson Hall, talking about the new venue and what it's gonna be like moving forward. And even the guy doing the interview was like, just so you guys know, like, I don't own a console, like really this is the sort of thing that kids are into. And then as we're having the interview, these like 5 kids leave their camp group and they actually come up and they recognize you because you're wearing the jersey. And they're like,
thought I was
whoa.
a player.
Yeah, they thought you were a pro player, but they're like, whoa, you guys, Overwatch, I love Overwatch. They're, oh my God, they're playing. And you could see the excitement in their faces. So they all got to be on camera and be in the interview, which is really cool. Even though our voice parts were cut out, unfortunately, it was still I'm not salty. It was still a really cool experience.
I'm a little salty.
Yeah, you got a little bit more than me, but it was still your biceps made it in though. So
yes, that's
really,
the best part.
Exactly, it is the best part.
Check it out, ladies.
Stop. So yeah, overall that was a really cool experience, and I'm excited for the homestand week and moving forward. And then Toronto released a vlog. So the reason I brought all that up, one, is it's news and it's exciting, but two, Toronto released a vlog and all the players like, we can't wait to play in front of the home crowd next year. The fans are so fantastic. And I was like, are any of you guys, gonna be here next year? Like, I'm surprised that they went that hard with the marketing. You got guys like Roki and I'm 37 and Gods, and I'm like, I don't know. Like, I'm not saying they shouldn't be. I just, you look at the tweet that God put out where he's sort of like, I don't know what my future holds, and I'm going to take some time to think about it during the off season and we'll come back. They showed.
That was tough.
And if the transition to an all Western speaking roster goes into the fray, then you assume that, Roki and them won't really be here either. So I was surprised that they pushed the marketing that hard with those players, but maybe they are. Like, maybe we're just going to run it back. I don't think that's the best decision at all, to be honest, but who knows? Yeah,
it's like, think of the team we are now, the team that we want to be in the future.
Mm-hmm.
I think we have to make too big of a leap.
Yeah.
To like just have the people we have now. We need to make some personnel changes. And, what everybody's thinking needs to change is what I think needs to change. But obviously the coaches are the only ones that know that. But we don't even have a head coach right now.
Yeah. Yeah. Obviously,
we're kind of two guys.
That actually goes back to this game.
Yeah, no. We have two guys who, probably know kind of what they're doing, but they weren't hired to be head coaches. They may not have as much experience as other people.
Mm-hmm.
And so we kind of need like a head coach to really start driving this new direction ASAP.
Yeah.
Because, we're in the off season now. We just got to start working it.
Yeah.
Got to get preparing for season 3.
Yeah. The coaches, we got some pretty good coaches. Okay. The video's over, but we're going to watch some highlights here. But we got some pretty good coaches. So we're at the 20-minute mark, by the way. We got some pretty good coaches from the Montreal Rebellion. Obviously, when you don't have someone as the head coach, it can cause a bit of not animosity, sorry, that's not the right word, but confusion in the team, right? You do want a head coach. So, yeah, again, going into the poor performance of the final game, we didn't even have a head coach. So, that needs to be addressed absolutely. The other thing is, you're right, like changes have to be made. I think you can't just sort of strive. And this happens. This is my mentality across all sports. Mm-hmm. You never want to strive for like mediocrity, right? Like it used to be sort of man, let's just get in the playoffs and see what happens, right? Like I don't want the mentality to be, hey, we built some of these players' brands. We think next year with some, more practice and working on the communication between the Korean-speaking players and the non-Korean-speaking players that we think we can get that 12, 11, 10 spot and potentially win a play-in game. Like I don't want that, right? I don't want our goal in 2020 to be, hey, maybe we can make play-ins. Like I want it to be, let's go for a top 6 sort of finish where we get the guarantee. I want to be competitive for a grand finals performance. And there's no way that you can logically sell me on the idea of let's run it back with a summer of the offseason, same roster, hope they fix some communication issues, and we're going to compete for a grand finals championship. You can't sell me on that. There's no way. So if you accept the fact that there's no way you're going to compete for a grand finals championship, then you have to start thinking about, okay, how can we improve this roster, and how can we make it good enough to the point where we can compete? Which means players got to go. Some players. I'm of the belief that you have now made the transition towards a Western-speaking roster. I think you've finished that transition. I think you have the World Cup coming up. You have a ton of talent to go to look from. You're going to see a lot of Western-speaking players on a big stage be able to compete against some top-tier talent across the world, and you're going to be able to sort of have a great scouting opportunity and pick up some players who you think can make the difference between going to play-ins and potentially getting that grand finals appearance. So I would look at that, and then I would try to use and sell off some of the Korean-speaking players to get money so that you can be competitive in those bids. And it pains me to say it, because Neko and Abe, right, Yakpong, Ivy, they're all fantastic players. Nobody's arguing the talent level, right? Like, man, Ivy's Hanzo is incredible, and we never really got to see his DPS in full force, which is a little bit unfortunate, but he's got a ton of talent, and Neko's fantastic, and I love his, like, the swagger Neko's got, where he just wants to frag out, and, I said my favorite moment from the 2019 Overwatch League season to this day is still Stage 1 when he killed Aim God, and he dropped the Boston Uprising logo right in the center, and just, did his little melee at it. So it's tough to see those players go, but I do think that you would need to transition towards a Western-speaking support line, and then kind of go from there.
Yeah, you know what? You hit every nail on the head there, and this doesn't make for good podcasting, but I completely agree, and I have nothing to add.
Well, you got to add something. You got to add something, Chris.
Oh, my God. If I was to add anything, it would be a question. What do you think we should do with IM37?
Yeah, I think we talked about this a bit last week. The kid's got talent.
Well, I mean, no, okay, not in that sense, but Logix is our head-clicking guy.
Yeah,
but the head-clicking guy.
Yeah, you need. I think you need 2 snipers. I think you'd need a double sniper. You'd want 2 snipers in case you want to run double sniper, and you'd want a projectile guy, which you sort of have in Mangachu. So if I'm 37, I grind in the off season because he wasn't, I think, ready to be Overwatch League just yet. He's got talents, got potential. And if he's not ready by the end of next year, I would put him on the contenders team, Montreal Rebellion, or put him to Montreal Rebellion now. They're still playing. Like, see if he can sort of get some practice in there and click some heads there. Like give the kid some reps at a competitive roster. He played 1 Tier 2 game. He played 1 contenders game, and then he was signed to the Overwatch League. Like, the kid's obviously got talent, but he doesn't have the competitive team. And I think he said it in an interview. He's like, it was a shock to me, right? I wasn't ready for that, how the amount of teamwork that was required to be at the Overwatch League level. So give him some reps, give him some practice, and we'll see where he is by the start of next year. We got a ton of time. You got tons of time. It's February. And he can speak Korean and he can speak English. So whatever roster you kind of want to go, he fits in either way. Like, you could realistically, there's an option we haven't talked about, and it's just run it back with an all-Korean roster. Keep Roki, keep A, keep Neko, keep Yakpunk, keep Ivy, and then get some more hit scan players, right? Like, there's that option's there too.
I love it. Okay, that's a good idea. I think that's a good place to end too. That was I'm really excited about that, but let's give everybody a quick update on what our schedule is looking like for the next couple of weeks.
For the podcast?
Yeah, for the podcast.
Yeah. I mean, we'll put one up. I think it's going to be like a weekly thing. I think we have enough to talk about with the World Cup and bring some people on. Nothing confirmed right yet. Yeah, fingers crossed. Though. We're in the talks to bring some people on, but
yeah, exactly. That's all I was going to say. We're not going to talk all.
Well, you just cut out.
Now?
Yeah.
We're obviously not going to talk about the Toronto Defiants. Shift gears, talk a little bit more about community things.
Yeah.
In Toronto, we'll just talk about that and the World Cup, which is super exciting.
Yeah, I agree. It's going to be more about the community, Toronto esports as a whole, in the next couple of weeks. And then as we get closer and closer to the World Cup, like I plan on doing a lot of like Team Canada and where they fit in the mold of things. And then we're gonna bring in multiple updates. And then if anything happens with the Defiant over the next couple of months, whether it be head coach, whether it be player changes, obviously we'll be next day, chatting about it, giving our thoughts on it. So I think that's a good way to end it too.
Okay,
but we will be next week. Next week we will be back. So
we will be back.
Any more memes you guys want us to post? Again, post those memes on the Reddit. Tag us on Twitter. Follow us on Twitter, YouTube, wherever you're watching this.
Back to my house.
No.
Look at. Oh no.
Hashtag CAOverwatch, and we'll put up the best ones. We'll highlight them. So thank you guys so much for listening, and as always, stay toxic.
Stay toxic.